Around April of this year, I decided that I wanted to start drawing. There were a few reasons for this. I was tired of this constant gut feeling I had that AI would consume all facets of human creativity. I felt useless after graduating from university. And I felt lonely. The act of drawing promised to, at the very least, take my thoughts away from all this and channel my energy into something semi-productive. Now, I had drawn a few little things before April of this year, but I had never gotten the proper urge to get quote-unquote good at drawing. Up to this point, I'd just randomly gotten inspiration from things I saw or ideas I had and did my best to put them down onto paper. In April, though, there was a drive inside me to actually improve. I wanted to be able to draw things without a million reference images. I wanted to be able to draw something half decent without spending days at a time on it. I wanted my drawings to look less rigid and more natural, whatever those ill-defined words actually meant. To put it succinctly, I just wanted to feel better about my drawing ability. And so, I spent most of this year working on and off at drawing, getting a feel for it, trying to push myself to draw more complex things, and ultimately, attempt to get better. Was it worth it? Did I manage to improve how I wanted? Did I rip my hair out in utter frustration? Well, let's go through what I made this year and see. This is my attempt to chronicle my first year of drawing into a YouTube video. As a starting point, here's the last thing I drew in 2024. An image of Puro for Christmas, Puro being the deuteragonist of the RPG Maker game Changed. At the time, I was really happy with how this image turned out. I felt that the arms looked quite natural, the pose was the most complex one I'd ever drawn, and the tail came out looking somewhat like an actual poofy tail. Looking back on it now, I'm still relatively happy with it, though there are definitely things I want to change about it. Puro's legs are a little too skinny for my liking, Puro's leg here is a little far from the present. I could have made Puro's foot paw shape a little better. And the thing that bothers me the most are these little floofy bits on his chest. They just don't give the fluffy texture I was hoping for. Overall, though, I'd say that this is still a decent drawing. I'm by no means embarrassed by it, though I hesitate to say I'm satisfied with it either. So, there's our starting point. Let's see how things progress through 2025. The first thing I drew this year was my very first Lucario. Now, I don't actually play a lot of Pokemon games, but I've always liked some of the Pokemon themselves. Lucario, Zangoose, Gengar, Greninja, Flareon, etc., etc. I've seen these Pokemon in so many different pieces of fan art that it's hard for me not to like them at this point. So I decided to spend some time and actually draw one of them for once. Why did I add whiskers to the Lucario, you may ask? Free will. It was honestly just a random decision I made while drawing this on a Discord call, but I liked the feel of it so much that I decided to make whiskers on Lucario a semi-regular thing for me. I don't know, I think it's kinda goofy in a good way. Admittedly, though, it makes some of my future Lucario look less like canines and more like rats. We'll get to those, don't worry. Looking back on this drawing, I still really like it. There were some bad decisions I made, like trying to add these small tufts of fur in front of the ears and doing this weird sort of scribbly color thing to add some texture. But overall, I think this Lucario looks pretty good for it being my first one. Other than the foot paws hovering over the cushion a bit, I think the pose is alright. The head shape is there, and the hand paws look pretty good, at least to my eyes. For a first drawing of 2025, this isn't bad. The only thing that truly bothers me about it is the fact that this drawing took several days of work, spending a few hours each day on it. That fact alone makes me feel like shit about it. Sure, I think it looks good, but considering the amount of work I put into it, disappointing. Oh well, it's a starting point. Most of the drawing I did in 2025 was done digitally, but I did sketch a few things on paper. Here are the sketches I did of a character I thought up. As you can clearly see, creating my own characters isn't a skill I have yet. I never ended up doing anything with this guy, but he exists. The sack thing on his back is for holding coffee. He's meant to be an assistant in a cafe, giving coffee to patrons and all that. In June, I drew some rabbits because I felt like it. Only a few of these I would consider decent. The next day, I practiced drawing my hand, and the day after that, I drew a random Lucario pose. Now, there are several things wrong with this sketch, but the thing I was focused on was the general back shape, and I think I did that alright. Drawing body shapes was completely new to me at this point, so the fact that I got that right at all is something worth celebrating. I also like how the head and snout look. I think they came out good too. After that, I practiced hands some more, did another bunny, sketched this random Lucario pose, which was done without any sort of reference, a pretty big deal for me, and also attempted to draw another Pokemon, the Midnight Lycanroc. I'm not entirely sure how this fourth one turned out as decent as it did, but it did. The arm and paw could be better, but the head and snout are actually pretty good. I didn't mean to draw it at the angle that I did, that angle being slightly under the Lycanroc's chin, but it just formed that way, and so I went with it. My friend Charlie, who's a much better artist than I, quite liked this one too, so I guess I did something right. Yippee. Here's another random Lucario pose. It's supposed to be him leaping over a wall or something, but I never finished it. This is another drawing where I'm completely embarrassed by how long it took me to get something so simple drawn out. At least on paper I have the excuse that it's harder to make little adjustments, so I don't feel as bad about this one as I do my first Lucario image, but it's still embarrassing. One more physical drawing I should mention. This one never got finished either, but I think it's decent. It's of a Midnight Lycanroc stressing out about his life at a bar. Art imitates life, I suppose. Moving forward to 2026, I think I should try and commit myself to drawing a little more on paper, just to get the feel for it and to experiment with different techniques and whatnot. Though, it's a lot harder to justify the time spent drawing on paper, as it feels like it's almost a guarantee that I'll make something worse than what I can make digitally. Of course, practice makes perfect, but practice can be kind of scary, you know? You're committing yourself to creating something that is, by definition, not the best you can do. For someone who struggles with their sense of self-worth, this is a shockingly hard barrier to get over. Back to digital drawings. I had seen a lot of drawings online where people anthropomorphize browsers like Firefox and Chrome, and I noticed that there was barely any art of Brave, so I set out to make some. There was only one problem. I couldn't draw lions. Holy shit. This is, without a doubt, the drawing I am most embarrassed of. Everything about this is just... fuck. Ugly expression, pose that doesn't match the perspective I wanted, ugly coloring, ugly everything. This drawing made me question if I could even draw anything. It seemed like such a simple task. Draw an upright lion. There are oodles of lion references online, and the pose I was drawing wasn't a particularly difficult one. And yet this happened. How? How is it possible for my hands to make something like this? Call me dramatic, but I was really frustrated by this drawing, and rather disheartened. I spent the next couple days thinking about lions, trying to find a semi-decent way to draw them. For some reason, the nose part of a lion doesn't make sense to me the way a canine's snout does. It's stubbier. It has a weird roundness to it. It's just weird. Compare it to Lucario's snout, which is just a bit that juts out. Way easier for me to conceptualize. In any case, I eventually managed to draw this, my second attempt at Brave. This one came out much better, but it's by no means perfect. Just look at how short this arm is. How I wasn't able to tell that this proportioning was fucked, I have no idea. And this armpit fluff? Not great. And the body? What is even going on here, man? Still, the focus was on the head, and that, for the most part, turned out okay. Open mouths are still something I struggle with greatly, but here it's not bad. At the very least, I think this actually passes as a lion compared to my previous attempt. It was around this time I met a small friend group on web fishing. Naturally, I wanted to solidify our friendship, and so I decided to draw out some of the dumb scenarios that came up in our conversations. Maybe my ego was trying to show off, or maybe I still have the mentality of a child, giving my friends the gift of shitty drawings. Either way, I made some drawings for the friend group. Here's one of them. I originally was going to narrate this, but I can't be bothered. Just pause the video and read it. This Lucario was drawn very quickly, and while I don't like the proportions of it, I think this was a big step up for me in being able to draw something I envisioned quickly. Quickly, in this context, meaning a half hour or something, instead of the multiple hours it took me to draw my previous Lucario. I didn't yet feel confident enough to draw legs, so I purposefully drew this Lucario from the waist up. Legs are something I still need to work on. The hand holding the coupon, though, actually looks pretty good. While this drawing may not look the best, I do feel like it marks a moment of genuine improvement for me. While writing this video, I realized just how many drawings I do for other people. Here's one I did for Vanna Black on Blue Sky. To say that I think they're cool might be a bit of an understatement. Instead of simply telling them that I think they're cool like a normal person, I had to go ahead and make fan art of one of their OCs, along with one of mine. In fact, I made my Blue Sky account just to send them this image. I went on to use the account for other things, of course, but it was initially made just for this one image. I tried a bunch of new things with this drawing. Clothing wrinkles, transparency effects on Whirlwind, the goo blob, and trying to draw legs that didn't suck. Did I succeed? Well, I think I got the curve of the butt correct. The legs still don't look right to me, personally. However, the posing on Slick, the black wolf thing, isn't too bad. The hands aren't too shabby either. I didn't get the expression on Whirlwind how I wanted, but I at least captured that wide-eyed excitement I was going for. The goopy transparency I was aiming for turned out alright too. I haven't really experimented with this sort of coloring stuff since this drawing, but it's definitely something I'd like to attempt again. Most of my attention this year went into practicing sketching. The main thing I'm insecure about with my drawing ability is my inability to sketch things out easily. Once I have a decent sketch, I'm usually able to tidy it up into something presentable, but to get a decent sketch, I often have to spend literal hours on it. This, quite frankly, is embarrassing. The sketch is supposed to be the quickest, dirtiest part of the process, and yet it sometimes feels like I spend more time fiddling around with a sketch than anything else in the drawing process. It's especially embarrassing when I go into an art stream on Twitch and see someone put together a good sketch in like 10 minutes. Now, it's stupid of me to compare myself to artists who have been at this for years, but it's really hard not to. Artists make it look so goddamn easy. A few blobby circle things here, a rough hand shape there, and boom, you have a drawing that looks like something. It feels like magic watching it unfold. And sometimes it makes me feel like I have access to that same magic. Until I start sketching something out, and I realize I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. Accepting that I'm not where I want to be is tough. I sometimes spend hours of a day stuck in my head, judging myself instead of focusing on work or whatever conversation I'm in. I verbally berate myself if I sketch something that I'm not happy with. It makes me resentful of other people who post their superior art to a Discord server or Blue Sky account. These are all me problems, no doubt. I have nobody to blame these feelings and thoughts on but myself. And yet I feel them. No matter how unproductive they are, I still feel them. And that's the worst thing about it. Feeling bad about yourself doesn't make you better. Practicing does, but practice is hard to commit to if you feel like you aren't improving. It feels like a waste of time. Why should you bother putting pen to paper if you can't make something as fabulous as that one random image you saw on Blue Sky? You'd be better off spending your time supporting real artists, the ones who are born with innate talent out of the womb. Or, worse, you'd be better off outsourcing your creativity to a machine that can pump out something in a few seconds without you ever having to lift a muscle. Despite my self-doubt, I kept going, mostly because I had nothing better to do. I was unemployed at this point, so what else was I going to do with my free time? The next thing I drew actually got some surprise attention, on E621 of all places. Remember that web fishing friend group I mentioned earlier? I decided to make another drawing for them, based on a conversation we'd had. I had a very specific scene in mind, and without a proper reference, I just went ahead and sketched it out. The sketch took a long time, a couple hours if I remember correctly, but what I got out was this. I'm going to censor this since I don't want to take any chances with YouTube, but if you're curious to see the uncensored image, here's the ID for the image on E621. As stupid as this image is, I feel it represents a huge leap for me. Not only was I able to construct this without a reference image, but it also gave me a huge confidence boost. I was able to make an image that resonated with over 100 random strangers online? Awesome. There's a lot I like about this image. Lucario's hand is basically perfect. It's a miracle that I was able to get Silly Cat's pose mostly correct without a reference, and the image's concept itself is pretty funny. Is the drawing perfect? Fuck no. Silly Cat's thigh just sort of disappears behind Lucario's arm here. I don't really like how Lucario's legs came out, and Silly Cat's face? Not terrible, but it just looks a little off to me. Regardless, I still think this drawing was one of my biggest steps forward in terms of ability this year. Being able to sketch things out without a reference was one of my goals, after all. Perhaps there's something to this whole never give up thing after all. This drawing gave me the confidence boost I needed to work on something bigger. In animation. Something you might not know about me is that I love goo creatures. I had this joke idea for a dating app tailored specifically for goo creatures, and I figured it'd be a funny little thing to make an animation on. Have a Lucario scrolling through the app like Tinder, looking for the perfect goo creature to snuggle up with at night. Since my Lucario character is gay, when he sees boobs on the app, he's understandably shocked and he ends up dropping the phone. That's the concept. Okay, cool. Let's draw it. At this point, I didn't have a proper piece of software to do animation on. I use GIMP for all my drawing needs, and to do any sort of animation on GIMP, you have to create a new layer for each frame and manually adjust the transparency of those layers in order to do onion skinning. The process is, how shall I put it, a pain in the ass. This animation, if I remember correctly, took about 2 to 3 weeks to make. There was a lot that had to be done. I had to draw all the profile pictures for the goo creatures, I had to draw the surprise Lucario reaction in the top left, I had to animate Lucario's hand letting go of the phone, I had to put everything together in a video editor, I had to record the audio. When all was said and done, this was the biggest project I'd tackled up to this point, drawing multiple different character types, different angles, different coloring styles, etc. Was it worth it? Well, it's something. I'm pretty happy with how everything looks in this animation. I just wish it hadn't taken so long. Goodra in particular took a very, very long time to sketch out. Getting the angle just right was a real nightmare, and even now, I don't think I drew it correctly. Goodra's body type is one I hadn't drawn up to this point, and trying to get it at this weird angle made things all the harder. I ended up drawing and redrawing this particular frame like 3 times before I eventually settled on it. Other than that, I think all the other drawings I did for this are pretty alright. The Lucario's little shocked animation in the top left is pretty good, despite it being only a few frames. For an animation put together from individual GIMP drawings, I think this is pretty alright. I was happy to get it done though. This shit took way too long. But thankfully, because of this experience, I wouldn't be stupid enough to start any other animation projects in the future that would take even more time. Right? I mean, clearly I needed to get better at drawing before I could tackle more complex animation. Right? Next up, I wanted to draw a scene from a novella I wrote. My intent was to draw 1 image for each chapter, but based on the fact that drawing takes so goddamn long for me, I didn't end up drawing any other scenes for the rest of the year. This drawing sent me into a manic episode. The problem was the Midnight Lycanroc. I hadn't drawn many Lycanroc up to this point, and so I wasn't quite comfortable drawing the snout. You might also notice that the snout is open. So, open snout and a foreign snout type. What's the worst that could happen? Well, I tried, and I tried, and I tried, and I just couldn't get it right. I got so frustrated to the point where I went on a 90-minute tirade drawing various snouts in a frenzy in the hopes of trying to understand how the fuck they worked. I don't know if you can sense the frustration in this image, but I can feel it whenever I look at it. This was a rough drawing for me, and the snout was only part of the problem. Drawing the human with this perspective was hard. It took many tries before I got this arm looking semi-correct. I even had to consult with a Discord friend to figure out how the hell it should look. The Lycanroc's paws were hard to draw, the legs were hard to draw, I still suck at legs. Everything about this drawing was pain, which is exactly why I opted for the French spelling of bread on the shelf down there. I do like how this drawing turned out, but for the amount of time I poured into it, I just wish it came out as something more. Well, I was feeling like ass, so that meant it was time to draw something for someone else. Even if your drawing comes out terrible, if you make it for someone else, you can justify the piece's existence as a gift. You made something for someone. That has intrinsic value, right? At the time, I was watching a lot of Super Mario 64 speedrunners on Twitch. Callie was one of these runners.
I'm just him, dude. Like, what do you want from me?
They have a cool jackalope as their profile picture. Why not draw some art of it? I mean, how hard could a little rabbit with antlers be to draw? Very hard, it turns out. Yeah, I completely fucked up the look of the jackalope. I don't think it looks bad necessarily, but it's not the same jackalope. Mine's more blobby. It's got a cartoon roundness that Callie's doesn't. Perhaps that's because I was using the Super Mario 64 box art as reference, and so I sort of combined the rounder features of Mario here with the animal features of the jackalope to create this. It took multiple days of sketching until I was somewhat satisfied with the jackalope. No matter how many little adjustments I made, I couldn't seem to get the pose exactly how I wanted. I basically drove myself insane trying to draw the same arms over and over and over again, trying to position the legs just right, trying to sculpt the face into something that wasn't the Alienware logo if it was stepped on. Looking back, I really shouldn't have been so hard on myself. Okay, sure, maybe the pose isn't as curvy as I would have liked, as I wanted the rabbit to curve like Mario does on the box art. But it's not terrible. I think this piece really came together when I started coloring. What the fuck? The art police is here to take me away. Alright, cool. I think this piece really came together when I started coloring. The entire time drawing this, I was sure it would turn out like ass, but once I started adding color, it actually started to look like something. It started to look like, I don't know, something someone would draw if they knew what they were doing. Weird. It was after this drawing that I made a big switch to my workflow. I started using a drawing tablet. Up to this point, everything I'd been drawing was done on a mouse. Now, drawing with mouse isn't that different from using a stylus, in my humble opinion, but I made the switch solely because I had a drawing tablet lying around, and it felt kinda silly not making use of it. It's not a tablet that has a screen on it, as you can see, and so it took me a while to relearn how to draw using it. I had to wire my brain to connect the lines being drawn on the screen with the stylus moving around on a seemingly unrelated device on my lap. The upside was that I could lean back in my chair as I worked on a drawing. My back thanked me for the switch. Tablet in hand, I went into practice mode, starting to draw daily sketches, which only remained daily for 3 days as I got a job soon after I started. I sketched out some Midnight Lycanroc on envelopes, I practiced hands some more, I tried to draw one of my OCs at work, and it came out like ass. I drew some Lucario stuff, I drew some cats, I drew a lot of random things. None of the sketches I did during this time were anything special, but I think that forcing myself to draw something each day kept me focused on improving. It's so easy to give up on a habit you're trying to form, especially if you've only been at it for a few days, so these small sketches, while insignificant in their own right, kept me drawing, and I think that's what was important. Another more proper drawing I did around this time was a set for Lewd Aesthetics on Blue Sky. This is another person whose art I really like, and so when they posted this request, probably jokingly, to their account, I jumped on the opportunity and drew this. I drew a second piece to go along with this one, but it's bad, and I wouldn't be able to show much of it on YouTube anyway, so this is the only one you're getting. Well, I think this drawing turned out alright. It's another one where the sketch took way too long to create. For such a simple pose, I have no idea why it took me literal hours to figure out where the shoulders went, how much of the body would be visible on the side, etc, etc. The general shape of Zin's head, Zin being the name of this dragon, took a while to get down too, though I haven't drawn many characters in this style before, so it's understandable it took me a bit longer than I'd like. I'm glad that I made this piece, and it was good practice for posing, I suppose, but it did nothing to improve my sense of self-worth due to how long it took. Hopefully Lewd Aesthetics got something out of it. I mean, they replied with a nice comment, but you never know if those sorts of comments are made out of pity rather than genuine appreciation. A little while later, I also drew this comic for a friend who had, up to that point, been absent in my life for 6 months. I figured that, hey, maybe drawing had the power to magically bring a friend back from the void. It was a long shot, but after months of having them not return any of my messages, and having them change their Twitter status to something rather concerning, I was willing to try anything. They were a good friend, and if a silly Lucario drawing had the potential to bring them back, I was willing to try it. I had been reading a lot of old Venom comics at the time, and it's typical for them to have characters from a slight overhead view, so I experimented with that in my comic. Honestly, it's not bad. It actually looks like you're looking at the Lucario from the correct angle. The thigh puffs could have been puffier, but the general pose and angle are good, I think. The eyes on this frame still bother me a little, though I can live with it. Getting eye positions right isn't something I've focused too much on so far. It's something for me to practice in the future. As mediocre as this drawing may be, it actually did get my friend to message me again, and we've been in touch ever since. Maybe I feel like shit about my drawing abilities still, but at least I have the power to help buoy a friend out of a depressive spat. That's gotta be worth something. It's definitely worth something for me, anyway. 2025 has been a year marred with friends falling out of my life. My self-confidence left with those friends. If I can't keep friends in my life, that must mean I'm a terrible person, right? For the longest time, that's what I told myself. The fact that I was able to save at least one person from joining that batch of lost friends, it made me question that logic. It gave me a little shred of hope that maybe I'm not the worthless sludge I viewed myself as for so long. Perhaps it would be smart for me to view drawing not as a means to an end, that end being objectively good art, whatever that means, but as a process that promotes careful observation, both of that which you're drawing and that which surrounds you. Drawing encourages you to appreciate. Instead of worrying about who I'm not, I should focus on what's around me and strive not to always move beyond it, but to be present in it. Or maybe I'm reading way too deep into it, and I'm just a speck of aimless flesh desperately clawing for any sense of direction I can find in my life. Both are equally likely. This brings us to the big project. Deciding that I wanted to make not just a drawing, but an animation for a friend, I set off to make what I thought would be a relatively quick project. Maybe it would take as long as Squelcher, that dating app animation I made, or maybe it wouldn't. I didn't think it would take me 3 months. It would have been smart for me to rotoscope this, but I didn't. Here's the original video side by side with what I made. When you look at them together like this, it's clear that my version has numerous errors, too many to go into detail. I was well aware of these errors as I made the animation, but you gotta understand how much time went into making this. Never once did I overlay frames of the original video onto my canvas. I would Alt-Tab to the video, look at the frame, Alt-Tab back to my animation software, and try to draw it as best I could. Obviously, with a method like that, there were going to be some mistakes. And given how much of an absolute time sink this animation became, I just couldn't be bothered to make it as perfect as I originally envisioned. I didn't rotoscope because I thought it would improve my sense of form and all that jazz. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Skill is a hard thing to measure, perhaps even impossible. In any case, this animation took a long time. I forced myself to work on it for an hour each night after I got off work, because of course I have to turn my hobbies into work too, with mandatory hours and set expectations. How else can I justify the time spent making silly pictures on a computer instead of, I don't know, curing diseases or harvesting crops like actual productive members of society? If I'm not improving in the most optimal, efficient way possible, then drawing must be a waste of time. Clearly. So, I forced myself to draw. And I do mean forced myself to. Some nights were a real struggle to get myself drawing. It was clear a little ways into working on the animation that it wasn't going to turn out as pretty as I'd hoped, and that really ate away at my motivation. Thank God I'm stubborn. That lack of motivation hindered me, but it never stopped me. At the end of the day, I'm about 80% happy with how this turned out, especially given the animation software I was using. Pencil 2D is so basic, it only has a rectangular select tool, no lasso. Whenever I had to move components of the sketches or line art, they had to be moved in little rectangular chunks. Awesome. Software limitations aside, I do think there's some good stuff in this. I think some of my best Lucario are in this animation. I really like the frames of him at the table with the Zangoose. The Zangoose looks pretty good too. For the most part, some frames I would have liked to change, but as I said, with how long this all took, everything became perfunctory by the end of it, and so I couldn't be bothered to be a perfectionist. This animation taught me a lot. Complex 3D things like the stairs should be sketched out in very, very basic terms, and then refined upon. I made the mistake of trying to sketch them out with too much detail, and I paid the price with how much time went into drawing them. Characters should also be kept basic in the sketch. I spent too much time trying to make the Zangoose's ears look proper in the sketch, and I ended up completely redrawing them anyways in the line art, so that was another huge waste of time. Certain motions and shapes should be kept simple. Keyframing is better than drawing frame by frame. Honestly, if I were to redraw this animation, I think it would only take about half the time now, knowing what I know. At the very least, it would come out a bit better. And hey, if I learned a lot, then this animation wasn't a total waste of time, I suppose. What followed this animation definitely was a waste of time, though. I felt so defeated after making this animation that I took a month break where I didn't once pick up a pencil or a stylus. Sure, I learned a lot from the animation, but it felt like such a bummer that the thing I spent 3 months on turned out like this. In the future, would I have to spend 6 months to make something half decent? A year? Animation takes a lot of time, but this much time for a 20-second animation where the vast majority of it is just keyframes? Fuck. It wasn't a good feeling, and at the time, I didn't even want to touch drawing again. The predominant thought in my brain was that I just wasn't good enough. Maybe I could practice for 10 years and get marginally better, but I felt I wasn't born with the innate talent needed to be a truly good artist. And so, over the next month, I didn't even try. I fell into a depressive slump and did absolutely nothing of note. It's funny how our brains do that, huh? The key to getting better is to practice, but instead of focusing on that practice, we so often wallow in the misery of not being good enough already. This is not a healthy habit. Everyone knows it, yet it's surprisingly difficult to break out of sometimes. Another funny thing about the brain is how unpredictable it is. One day you can feel like there's no point in trying to do anything, and the next day you're drawing sonar from Dispatch with an anatomically inaccurate bat penis. Sometimes taking a break is necessary. We need time to recharge and to reframe our thinking. I'd be lying if I said that I came back after that month with the best mentality, but it had at least improved to the point where I was willing to try again, and really, that's the most important thing. I still felt bad about my ability, but I didn't feel hopeless. My art output was pretty slow throughout the last couple months of 2025, but I made a few things. A gift drawing for a friend, a Zootopia piece that I have to censor for YouTube, a few sketches of that OC that I haven't yet perfected. There are a few other things I've made, of course, but this video isn't meant to show every single thing I've drawn. Not like there are many other drawings anyway. Compared to other people who draw, I'm slow. So very slow. But that's not enough to stop me. Not now, anyway. Maybe in the future, but not now. There was a Roy Arashi stream I was watching a little bit ago where he talked about the process of getting better at drawing, and one particular thing he said really stood out to me. I'm paraphrasing, but he said something along the lines of, "It doesn't matter how good of an artist you are, what matters is that you keep drawing." I like to believe there's a lot of truth in that. The one main thing that separates those who achieve something and those who don't is that the ones who achieved something kept at it. They didn't stop until they accomplished what they set out to do. If I'm ever to get better at drawing, if I'm ever to get to a point where I'm happy with what I create, I just have to keep practicing. Drawing is like any other skill. It's learned. It's hard, but it can be done. I know I'm making this video way too serious. I'm just some jackass on the internet who wants to be able to draw. There's no need to try and make it all inspirational and shit. And while that may be true, I think there's something here to say about life in general, too. Things are hard. Some things are harder than others. People, though, are adaptable. They can take a lot of abuse, and a lot of ridicule, and a lot of self-doubt, and a lot of exhaustion, and they can just keep going despite it all. Things are hard, but that doesn't mean they can't be overcome. And really, there's no rush. We have our entire lives ahead of us. If there's something we want to do, there's plenty of time to do it. Drew Gooden echoes these sentiments in his video, AI is Ruining the Internet. I'll just let the clip play.
Not gonna feel as rewarding. I understand how tempting a shortcut can be, especially when you go online and you see all these other people doing cool things and you're like, man, I'll never be that talented. It would take me like 10 years to learn how to make music like that. Okay, that's fine. What's the rush? Just start right now. Don't worry about how long it's gonna take. Just take the first step. How are you ever gonna do something for 10 years if you won't even do it for one day? Maybe you won't be good at something the first time you do it. You probably won't. But every time you improve, that's something that you can feel proud of. That's something that you did. Call me stubborn, but I would rather make something shitty on my own than watch a computer make something good. Write a funny script for the end.
There's pride to be had in the feeling of improvement, no matter how slow. Did I become an art god in 1 year? No, not even close. Did I improve? Absolutely. This is something worth celebrating. Many artists have championed this mentality for years, including, when the fuck did this turn into a video essay? Sorry, I guess I got carried away. Let's end this video where we started. A simple drawing of Puro. Remember this drawing from back in 2024? I drew that around Christmas time. Well, here's a drawing of Puro I finished around Christmas time of this year. This is what 1 year of improvement looks like. I won't try and critique this one, since not enough time has passed for me to have any sort of authority to do so, but I'll let you judge. Perhaps this will spark some amount of inspiration within you to go out and do something you've always wanted to do. I sure hope so. If a dumbass like me can enjoy even a small amount of improvement, then I'll bet you can too. Thanks for watching.